Yo, what's up, people? It's your boy. I'm Chris the Dom One, and I'm back with another video. Rate, comment, subscribe. Subscribe and enjoy. You will not be disappointed. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when my next video goes live. Quick programming alert. I'm still gonna do some gaming live stream on this channel. I'm gonna try to sprinkle it in between this channel and Twitch. Go follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. It's I'm Chris the Dom One Gaming. Go check that out. Go copy. All right. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video about the Houston Rockets and their off season and what they're trying to do for the next following year. So the Houston Rockets, ever since last year, came with all these different types of excuses why they couldn't dethrone and overtake the Golden State Warriors. And one of the excuses was, well, Chris Paul was injured. And if Chris Paul wasn't injured, they could have beaten the Golden State Warriors, right? Well, fast forward to this year, not only Kevin Durant went down, but they didn't have Boogie Cousins. So they had two all-star players unavailable, and Kevin Durant was unavailable from Game 5 and a little bit of Game 5 and Game 6, and they still lost that series. So there's a different and after the loss and during the game, Chris Paul and James Harden have a disagreement on how the offense should be run. James Harden is the type of player, the type of individual where he has to have the ball in his hand in order to be very successful. He's not the type of player that can run through screens. He's not the type of player that's going to sit on an island, sit on the corner. He's not that type of player. He's more of an ISO player. So he has to have the ball in his hand, and that's why his style fits pretty well with Mike D'Antoni in his offensive system. You know, if you look at Mike D'Antoni and the teams that he coached, Steve Nash was sort of that player that James Harden is today. You know, some would say that Steve Nash has some ISO in him, but the difference between Steve Nash and James Harden, he can play without the ball and still be a lot effective. Where with James Harden, he's lacking in those areas. Okay, he works best holding the ball. So Chris Paul mindset is we need to move this ball around. We need to have some fluidity with the ball. Have the ball move around instead of players move around. That's not going to work for James Harden. And a couple of times they have tried that, James Harden would sort of sabotage that offensive set by slowly but surely getting into the offense. Okay, so you got that going on, and there's a disagreement between Chris Paul and James Harden. Now, the Rockets organization has pretty much said that, you know, they're standing with Chris Paul and his analogy on how they should, moving forward with the Houston Rockets, trying something different. You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Okay, they have tried this previous years by allowing James Harden to have the ball, and it works great in the regular season, but when they meet their match, which is the Golden State Warriors, you got a team concept versus an individual concept, and ISO play, hero ball, does not work in this day and age of the NBA. You're going to have to establish and create chemistry with the team and have a team concept, which is moving the ball around. And James Harden is not, he's not too pleased with that theory. Okay, so these two individuals are knocking heads, sort of say, on how the offense is going to be running moving forward. Okay, plus Chris Paul is a lot older. He has a lot of money on his contract, and there's a rumor that's going around that suggests that the Houston Rockets are, if they, it's obvious that they're going to have to change the roster up, because the current roster they have cannot compete with the Golden State Warriors. And there are rumors that suggest that Chris Paul might be one of those individuals that might be traded. Now that sounds great and all. That sounds great and all, okay? But at the end of the day, Chris Paul is a lot older. He has a lot of money on that contract, a lot of money that another team is going to have to eat. And Chris Paul is just not the same player he once was back in the Clippers. I mean, his prime is over. He's an older player, and you got so much money tied into him. Plus, if you look at the landscape of the Houston Rockets players, their roster, Clint Capella might be a piece that you can possibly explore trading, but you're not going to get fair value for Clint Capella. Okay, so the Rockets are kind of cap-strapped with the players that they have. They got Iman Shumpert, I guess, for another year. They got Austin Rivers. They got pieces, but they're not great pieces. They're not championship level type of pieces. It's clearly obvious that they need a second player on that roster. Chris Paul is not going to be that player because Chris Paul is getting a lot older. Plus, he has to utilize so much time and effort on the offense. Even if Mike D'Antoni let the offense run through Chris Paul, I feel like initially James Harden is going to disagree with that. Initially, James Harden is going to have a problem with it, and he's not going to adapt quickly to the way how they do business, so to say, when it comes to running the offense moving forward next year. So it's quite obvious that the Rockets see, well, look, if James Harden is an ISO player and he needs the ball, then they're going to make him back a point guard again. Now, remember a couple of years ago I talked about this, and I said putting James Harden at the point is not going to be that very successful. They're not going to win championship basketball putting James Harden at the point. But if you look at what's going on and you look at the options that are in front of them, they really don't have no other choice but to put, if they trade Chris Paul, but to put James Harden at the point. He's an ISO player who needs the ball, and he sort of makes his decision in his play by holding on to the ball, making either the right pass or the right play. So that's what the Houston Rockets, in theory, are looking at for next season. Maybe if they can find somebody that wants to take Chris Paul and take his contract, and in return you give them pieces that they can work with to go deep into the playoffs. Now, there's no team out there that's going to give them the players that they want. Chances are, if you're going to give up Chris Paul, and if you look at his age and look how much money that you owe him, that's a bad contract. So to give up Chris Paul, you're going to have to get some of their bad contracts, okay? So it's not going to be a situation where you can trade Chris Paul and get some pieces that can get you, that's going to get you far and deep into the NBA. I don't think, well, there's a lot of organizations in the NBA is not going to give an award to the Houston Rockets, okay? They're not going to simply just give them what they want. They're going to have to take contracts that they don't want in order for Chris. And chances are it's going to be a team that's not a playoff contending team. Okay, it's going to be that type of team, and it's going to be a trade that is going to be done later, like earlier before the NBA season starts. That's when you're probably going to see that trade. I don't see that trade. If there's some, if this trade, I don't see that trade happening in the summer. You know, I see that trade more so when all the other dominoes fall, when everybody's either on their new teams or going back to their old teams. Then the possibility of having Chris Paul on your roster, and that's pretty much what it is. The Rockets are so cap strapped that they can't make decisions, can't just add pieces on the pieces that they have. Okay, now they're at the position of they're at the mercy of the other team. Okay, you got an aging player of Chris Paul. He's not getting any younger. He's not getting any better. Okay, and he's got a salary. He's got a contract that's maxed out that you owe a lot of money to. Okay, not going to accept a buyout, and even if he does a buyout, that's still putting you in the hole because you're not going to have enough money to get somebody in there. Now they have explored a lot of options. A Carmelo Anthony, they explored all these options. I think the perfect player that they could get, but they just don't have the money or have the salary cap room or flexibility, is a JJ Redick. A JJ Redick will fit perfectly with Houston Rockets. He's the type of player that you can sit in the corner and he can just wait. He can just sit there without no movement and allow James Harden to do his thing, and James Harden will kick it out to him, and the percentages of him making a three are a lot better. So Chris Paul, James Harden, it is what it is. There's really nothing, Rocket-wise they can do. Okay, so yeah, that's all I gotta say today, guys. Tell me what